Welcome to episode 2 of Coffee with Cappy podcast. My name is Scott Brown, and I'm a retired New York State Police captain, hanging up my spurs back in 2013 after serving an exciting 32-year career. I am honored and excited to introduce our special guest today, retired New York State Police Zone Sergeant Mike Trimboli. Trim is currently the president of USA Hockey, and just recently on July 12th was inducted into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame. During his tenure with the New York State Police, Trim received recognition for his performance and actions on numerous high-profile cases. So, Mike, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Cappy. Always a pleasure to be here.
So let's dive right into it. Trim, let's talk about your early days in Massena regarding your family in sports and the boy from the 13662.
Yeah, sure. Massena is a small town in northern New York, right along the Canadian border. It was an industrial town for many years, had General Motors plant, Reynolds Aluminum. Alcoa is still here and thriving. And my grandparents were immigrants from Italy, came over, and my grandfather worked at Alcoa for a number of years. My dad started in the apprenticeship program out at Reynolds and worked his way up through several different levels and became a supervisor there at Reynolds Aluminum. Really, it came down to small town, blue-collar mentality, great friendships, real close friends from high school and grade school growing up. High school graduated my class about 300 or so. It was a pretty competitive sports community, known for its football and hockey primarily, but always competitive in just about any sport that high school sports was competed in. So really close-knit community. A couple of the plants have closed now, so the population's dwindled a little bit. But a lot of good core values were taught and learned growing up here in Massena.
We had talked briefly over the years. You actually started playing minor hockey at quite a young age, and you had some good success of your team there going on into some national tournaments, didn't you?
Yeah, of course, I started, it's probably 5 years old, maybe. I can't really remember exactly, but what I do remember is we didn't have any indoor facilities back then, so it was all outdoor ice, and a lot of our games and practices were held on those outdoor rinks around town. And then we would travel across the border into Canada and play at some small towns across the border there, Cardinal Finch, Hawkesbury, Cornwall, several different communities along Charlotte that had the indoor facilities. So we played a lot of our games over there. And then in the mid-'70s, the local arena indoor facility was built. So everything moved inside. But, I got to say that, that's the one thing that is lacking nowadays a little bit is how much fun we had on those outdoor rinks, and not just practices that you had to shovel before and after and try to stay warm between shifts whatsoever, but in the shacks. But I'm just talking like getting together in those outdoor rinks, so with kids throwing the sticks in the middle and every different age competing against every different age. And you had to fend for yourself, and you learned a lot of lessons. Learned a whole lot of lessons, not only hockey lessons, but teamwork lessons and hierarchy, so to speak.
You mentioned your dad during your Hall of Fame induction speech, and it's evident that Mr. Trimboli had a huge impact on your life. Could you expound on his instilling in you the values of hard work, commitment, pride, and responsibility?
Yeah, sure. I mean, talking about the hockey piece, he coached a lot when I was growing up because there weren't a lot of parents that volunteered to coach, but he never skated, never played the game, didn't start skating until he'd get out on the ice to try to coach the teams or whatever. But he knew there was a need for something, and he was willing to volunteer his time. I've still got some of the books upstairs that he got on learning the game, for lack of a better phrase, but really good stuff. And really the off ice stuff, the values of hard work, commitment, discipline, accountability, work ethic's a really big part of it. My dad worked 2 jobs. He would work at the industry during the day, and then he ran a plumbing and heating business for several years. And come home, we'd always have supper together, myself, Judy, my sister, and mom and dad. And then he'd go off to work the jobs at people's houses that needed plumbing and heating work. And he was always willing to commit himself to stuff. And when he committed himself to something, it, as he used to say, is you don't do anything half-assed. If you're in it, you're in it to do the right job for the right reason and make sure that you have the time and commitment to do that. the whole working two jobs things ended up working out well for me too, because as I got older, I would go out on the jobs with him and we'd be able to spend time together on the job. And it wasn't work to me. It was spending time with my father. And that was a really big thing. And I was what they called a gopher for a long time, where he needed a wrench, I'd go for the wrench. If he needed something from the truck, I'd go for it and get it out of the truck. And then as time wore on, I learned installations, and as I got older and got up into high school, I did some of the jobs myself, where I would go out and install a hot water heater at a house, and he'd come and check everything and make sure everything was good to go while he was doing a job somewhere else. Or if he needed something done at one house while he was at the other, I'd be able to go over and do that. Then he'd come over and check the work and kind of go from there. But it was just the commitment, the work ethic, accountability is a really big word to throw into there. It's good. It's good life lessons, stuff that I still, hold dear today and have helped guide me.
Outstanding. Wow. So how did attending Norwich University, which is a school renowned for its military and disciplined structure, how did it prepare you for the New York State Police Academy in a life of public service?
Well, Norwich University is the oldest private military college in the nation. It's basically the father of ROTC. Back in 1819, Alder Partridge recognized that there was a need for citizen soldiery and began the ROTC vis-a-vis Norwich University. And I was a member of the Corps of Cadets. I attended there starting in the fall of 1983, and it was life-changing, to say the least. My mom always jokes and says that she wants the boy back that left for Norwich, not the boy that came back from Norwich. But that being said, it's, I was a little bit hardened, but in a good way. Really kind of exposed me to a lot of things and actually made me realize things about myself and pushed me beyond my comfort zone in a lot of areas, and was successful. And it was through that hard work and almost failure and realizing you had another gear, so to speak, to work. And the monster's only as big as you make it sometimes. Those 1 a.m. wake-up calls and PT sessions and things like that, they were pretty good because they helped foster that belief in myself, really. And you're working with a group of recruits that are in your company. So you're starting to establish that team philosophy and that team mentality. And then as that rolls into my sophomore year, I wanted to be a part of the cadre as a non-commissioned officer in the company. So I put in my request for that. You go through an interview process and they kind of do an assessment on you or whatever. And I became a squad leader in my sophomore year. And then in my third year there, I was the S3 Master Sergeant, which was basically the person that was in charge of all recruit training. So it was kind of an evolution from there. In that phase of things, I can say that really made the academy easy for me. And it kind of having been through that and then having been the guy that created all the chaos for recruits and understanding what was coming next, it made it easier for me. And I was maybe able to take a little heat for some of my other classmates and do a few things that maybe I had to do push-ups for or had to bear the brunt for to help take the heat off some other people that were struggling at the time. But that was a big part of it. And then, the other thing while I was there, I was part of a mountain cold weather rescue team, and it was a group of hard chargers. It was the Army portion. So ROTC, you would declare if you were going to be Air Force ROTC, Army ROTC, or Navy Marine Corps. So from there, when you took your military studies classes, if you were going to declare Army, you would go to the Army military study classes, and then you would take part in other things. And one of those was this mountain cold weather rescue team. So that was just like I said, a group of hard chargers, guys that, as we said, were high speed, low drag, and did a lot of crazy stuff. And they had a actual rescue team that was responsible for any sort of mountaineering mission across the state of Vermont. If somebody was lost, they would help out with things like that. Any type of cold weather rescues, they would help out with those. And I became a squad leader there. I made the team. So it's a process to go through to make the team. So I became a member of the team and then was a squad leader and ultimately a team leader for that group as well. Conditioned that over to, the MRT stuff. Yeah.
So the location now, is that Northfield?
Vermont, yes. Yeah, 12 miles south of Montpelier.
Right, and right along the Green Mountains.
Yep.
almost central Vermont. So you guys were in an ideal location for any type of responses you had to do, really, with the cold
Yeah,
weather.
correct.
My understanding is that your sister Judy, who's a retired New York State trooper and senior investigator, played an important role in you deciding to join the New York State Police. Could you explain what that's all about?
Yeah, sure. Basically, if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't be on the job. Because when I was at Norwich, I was committed to getting my commission with the Army and hopefully go 11 Bravo and infantry and kind of move on from there. I had gone to qualified for air assault school after my sophomore year, and then was working toward getting a qualification to attend Ranger School after my junior year. And there's only so many slots available at Norwich, so we're working toward that. And I was home it was that summer, and she was on the Ogdensburg PD. Then she went to the State Police Academy. She attended for a small period of time. She voluntarily separated, but then had the ability to come back, but she would have had to go through, the academy and stuff. So the test was coming up for state police, and she was going to take the test and said, "Hey, why don't you come and take the test?" And I'm like, what do I want to do that for? I'm all set. I've got my future lined up. She says, like, just shortening the story. She's like, what else are you doing this weekend? I'm like, nothing. She's like, well, then come and take the test. I'm like, all right. So we went and took the test, and next thing you know, get the phone call and go through all the candidate processing. And now it's the big decision. What am I going to do? I want to do the military thing, and now the state police opportunity comes up. It's a really tough decision because I kind of had my mindset toward the one, and now the other opportunity comes. So basically sat down with my regular Army guy at Norwich, and we did an assessment of salary and benefits long term, and projected out like 4 to 5 years. What would I be making salary and benefits, and the pluses and minuses if I went the Army route, and then sat with somebody from the state police and tracked out the 5 years benefits and salaries, and where would I be potentially 5 years from now type thing. And there was no comparison whatsoever. And so I made the hard decision and changed course, and actually it worked out awesome. And it worked out. I had an unbelievable career, and it was such a good job. And so if it wasn't for her convincing me on that Saturday to go and take that test, things could have been different.
It's kind of it's a good problem to have to make that decision.
Yeah.
Similar but different, career paths for sure.
Yeah, and it's a great story too, because we ended up both going to the same academy, and went through the academy in Albany and together, and it was made for an interesting experience.
And what's your you and Judy's EO?
March 30th, 1987.
Wow.
Yeah, 161.
Good stuff. I'm going to fast forward here. So you go through the academy and you're assigned, I'm sure, up to Troop B.
Yep. Worked out in Malone Barracks. Yep.
Jeff Joe's country, right?
100%.
When you were on the MRT, any cases as a trooper? I mean, obviously, I was the captain then and I had a part of, responsibility who we selected. And just to make a note for our listeners, you were an ideal candidate, and we had some folks that were on the bubble, whether or not we were taking them. And we had folks that weren't on the bubble that we definitely wanted. And obviously you were one of them. And I don't need to go through the list of guys, but you know who they are, the ones that we definitely wanted. So, you did a great job while you were there. But I know there's a couple there that at least one or so you wouldn't mind talking about.
There's so many. I mean, just going through all the different things that we did. And of course, I'll go back to going through the basic school and for the MRT and everybody that was involved. And you mentioned all the guys that it went through with, and it reminded me back of, going through the rescue team stuff at Norwich. But it's that, once again, it's that teamwork mentality and that group of guys that somebody's fallen off, you're picking them up, and not everybody was perfect. And, everybody had their strong points and some guys had their weak points, and you just work together, and that team philosophy and how that basic school was run for MRT back then, not even to mention the advancements of the way things are now, but the way it was done back then was it was fun and challenging at the same time. And going through that, people would understand that better than those that haven't gone through that. But it was really good. And of course, you foster and you create that not only the teamwork amongst the guys that you're going through the basic school with, but all of the present and current team members are instructors going through it with you. So now you're starting to foster those relationships as time goes on, because ultimately when the graduation happens, you're all on the same team and you're all doing stuff together, and holding us accountable to a higher standard only made us better in the long run. And it was really good. But yeah, several really good details that come to mind. But, the one that probably pops up a lot is the two escapees from the federal correctional facility in Raybrook, which was at one time the Olympic Village in 1980. It's where the athletes stayed. They converted it into the federal prison. But I had two inmates climb over the barbed wire fence and escape and get out, and they stole a car, and they started to head north, actually up toward Paul Smith College. And some time had elapsed from stealing the car, but the notice went out of the escape. The escape was confirmed. They did their Signal 100 stuff and got Operation 100, I should say, stuff that went out, and people were put into place, roadblocks were established, and people were rolling in for response. There was a roadblock set up at the intersection of Route 30 and 86 at Paul Smith College, and as the two troopers were up there assessing the cars that came through, one of them tried to run the roadblock, and they recognized who it was from the pictures as they went by, and they chased him around the Paul Smith campus, and the chase went back into Saranac Lake, and they ended up crashing roadside just inside the village there by the lake. And the two guys jumped out and ran into the woods, and we were in the area then. We had been deployed out to the area then, and kind of shortening up their part of it, but it gets to the meat of things, and they jumped out of the car and ran into the woods, and we were deployed out there. I think you were with me. We were working the off shift, and we got notified, and we were at crazy that I remember it, but I think it used to be called the Swiss Acres Lodge, Lake Placid. And so we rolled out and went in to assist the guys that were working and actively tracking them through the mountainous area there on Dewey Mountain. And one of our Troop B canines, Jim DeSalvo, was teamed up with Nicky Kaufman, and they ended up tracking down the one. Eric Van Vrieken was one of them, and ended up tracking him down. And I think the dog got a bite on him, and they subdued him, so he went into custody. And then we continued our sweep through the mountain, and it was dark. I think when if I can remember correctly, it was like 2 a.m. when Nicky and Jim DeSalvo got that one guy. It was all right in the early morning hours.
Yeah.
So we continued the sweep, and then kind of decided to call it at that point in time. And everybody was going to go down to the command vehicles and try to bring in more bodies to establish a grid search for first light. And Bob Cronin and I, Crow, decided that we were not leaving. We were going to stay in the woods. So we established a listening post, 360 perimeter, where I faced one way at the base of one tree, and tree behind us, he faced the other way, and more of an LPOP, listening post, observation post situation. We were going to sit there till sunup, just in case anything came through. And sure enough, sun starts to come up and starts to get a little bit of daylight, and off in the distance, I could just kind of see some leaves rustling and some movement in the ground. And of course, being out there all night kind of cleared my eyes and shook my head a little bit and made sure I wasn't hallucinating and hoping to see something that wasn't there in a mirage. But sure enough, the ground was moving, and the leaves kind of came unstructured, and I see like this blaze orangish type shirt, and then I see the head pick up and look side to side. So, immediately I'm trying to be quiet, and this was probably, I'm going to say, 75 yards out, 60 to 75 yards out. So I'm trying to be quiet. I'm trying to call you guys down at the command post. I'm trying to call Crow. Crow hears me, kind of do the hand and arm signals that I see him, over there. And sure enough, we kind of coordinate what we're going to do. I don't get any response from everybody down doing the grid search preparation. So I just figured him and I will charge him. And when I start barking commands, everybody will hear it down low. So count of three, we jumped up off the ground and started charging at him, yelling out, giving the command, state police, don't move, state police, don't move. Stay on the ground, and charged at him and kind of overwhelmed him with the speed and violence that we normally do. And he had his hands tucked underneath him. And as I'm approaching him yelling, I can kind of hear the commotion of all of you down below, and you guys come charging up the hill, and we got him covered, told him to show me the hands. And eventually, after a few commands, the hands came out to the side, and they were still all pretty much cut up from them going over the barbed wire and everything else. But Crow covered them, and I was able to handcuff them, and we were able to walk them out. It was pretty good. It's a pretty good time.
Right.
It was right up there. It was pretty good.
That was a very successful detail. I guess what we were talking about a lot back then was, as it was ongoing for those couple of days, was had they made it outside the village of Saranac Lake, they didn't know what they were getting into with the mountains.
Right. Yeah.
It was successful for the team and for the troopers and Troop B and everything, and it was fortunate for them, for their sake, that they were captured, right? You guys did an outstanding job on that search. I mean, you and Crow, and the initiative to stay out there on the midnight, and paid off, right?
Yeah, it was interesting how he just hunkered down and buried himself with leaves. And you got to remember, too, this was the middle of the summer. It's middle of July, so there's a lot of tourists up in the area and everything else. So it was pretty high profile.
For sure. Yeah. I know Major Warburton was the Troop B major at the time, was extremely grateful for everybody's work on that. So going to fast forward here to when you were a zone sergeant. Later in your career, you were with the counterterrorism unit and you were reactivated. So when you were with the counterterrorism unit, you were actually assigned to Troop B, the northern region, correct?
Yeah, it's a Troop H designation, but yes, assigned up into those a Northern Border Security team. Scott Hagelkey was in charge as the officer, and Bill Bronner was the senior investigator, and we ran all Spider and Stone Garden criminal interdiction and everything else along the northern border, working in concert with Canadian authorities and police services and everything else. Yeah.
Could you give a snapshot or a little synopsis to our listeners? What you were reactivated to oversee the tactical and operational command and control during Ralph Phillips' fugitive search down in Western New York on the southern tier. And could you explain what your role was there?
Yeah, at the time I was no longer a member of the mobile response team, and with promotions and everything else. But you never lose that hunger to be involved and want to help out any chance you can get. And when the Ralph Bucky Phillips detail happened and everything that went on preceding that, the trooper getting shot and then they had him pretty much contained, what they thought in a certain area. The detail went on for a while. I ended up getting tasked out there to be part of initially just doing overwatch, going through the wooded area, doing overwatch like an LPOP type thing again, looking at the relatives' houses and doing some other things. So that was basically you go out for a small time and then you end up coming back. And then unfortunately we had the incident where Joe and Donnie were ambushed, and things really escalated at that point in time, and things got a little bit crazy out there, as one could imagine, rightfully so. And there just seemed to be no filtering process, and the guys on the team were just getting called to everything, no matter what it was. And so what had happened was ultimately I got called out, and I basically worked out of the command post and ran command and control operations for the team, and was that filter, and decided what guys would go on and what they wouldn't go on, and what required a quick response team or a quick response force to roll out on and get them assigned to that. And then as logistics were planning out for future tactical operations or non-tactical operations, then I would talk to the major and the captain, that BCI captain out there, and decide what the team's role would or would not be. And honestly, there were some pretty hard conversations during the process of that. But in the end, it worked out best for the guys, boots on the ground. They weren't just being running ragged. They were sent to things that they needed to be sent to. What they were sent to. Enough of the men were sent to be able to safely handle it. And then as things evolved, guys out in the field ended up capturing them. And it was interesting because as things evolved, the U.S. Marshals came in and deputized everybody so we could go down into Pennsylvania to be able to be on the ground when it happened. And as that evolved to where they had ran him into the field, we had the helicopter overhead and everything else, and he was ultimately taken into custody by our guys, our team guys that were in the field with the helicopter overwatch. He was brought it was radioed in that he was in custody, and he was brought in handcuffs up to the roadside where I was. And the interesting part was, technology being what it was back then, which wasn't great, I had a little flip phone, and I took a picture of him over the hood of the car, and then it was up to me to radio in to confirm that it was definitely him and that he was definitely in custody. And it was kind of neat, making that transmission back to New York State. And if I remember right, I think Chuck Guest was back there, being able to radio back to him and confirm that he was in custody. And then Pennsylvania State Police brought him back, and yeah, real intense, really good teamwork. But it was good. It was good to be able to get out there and give the guys that were actively part of the team a little sense of somebody being there to help them out, so that they could be utilized for what they were there for.
Yeah. And just for the listeners, the escape occurred in Raybrook back in 1996, 10 years before the Phillips search. So fast forward from 1996 to the summer of 06, when a trooper, Sean Brown, was shot in Chemung County, Troop E, Southern Tier, which led to this several-month search detail across the Southern Tier, right? And so now when the unfortunate shooting takes place August 31st of 06, and Joe unfortunately passes away a couple days later in the hospital, and Donnie miraculously lives, it's another almost a week before Phillips is captured.
Yeah. Easily.
So I just want, the time frame is important. It's 2006 now, and you've moved on in your career, but you come right back. And I just want to make note that the experience that you had at the time in 06 was invaluable. Just like Sergeant Nolte came back, and Sean Donovan, Sergeant Donovan came back down, and everybody helped out because of their experience.
I'll never forget where I was when I got the call that Joe and Donnie had gotten shot. It was in the middle of softball playoffs, and went right up to the barracks and made a bunch of calls, and was on my way within the hour.
Right. So Phillips is apprehended, and now we're going to fast forward to 9 years. If I got my math right, 2015, and there's the escape. I call it Dannemora Prison. It's Clinton Correctional.
Clinton Correctional.
Right there. Yeah.
Yes.
Just wanted you to touch base on that, because you were redeployed again for your, with Chuck Guest was the major, and he was doing a great job as the IC, and he personally wanted you to come over, I should say, from Massena to where the command post was, to help out. If you could just touch base on that.
No, for sure. We had Richard Matt and David Sweat escape overnight from Clinton Correctional Facility with the assistance inside from a matron that worked in the sewing area, I believe. They end up getting some tools, and it's kind of almost like an escape from Alcatraz thing, where they burrowed into the inner walls and had the dummies in the bed to make it look like they were there, and then got in through the heating elements under the wall and out through a manhole cover. And she was supposed to meet them there and never did. And so they were on their own, and off into the woods they went. And I think it was the day of the Belmont Stakes was the day that it was reported, because the governor, whichever horse it was vying for the Triple Crown. And Governor Cuomo was at the Belmont Stakes that morning and had to end up coming up to the prison because of it. But that went on for some period of time, off into the extremely wooded area in Dannemora, very, very rural. But that went on for a period of time, and then checking in and seeing what was going on, not wanting to intrude on anything. But ultimately, I got the call to be there to come and help out. And Chuck was part of the MRT with me, and we had gone through the basic school together. And at the time, he was the Troop B commander, and we got there and was part of a group that kind of ran command and control under Chuck's leadership there, and helped out with the incoming troopers. We had troopers from all over the state responding. This went on for a very long period of time. It seemed like a very long period of time, but it was day in, day out. And Of course, social media being what it is, and everybody has an opinion at home. Everybody's saying, "Oh, they left. They got in a car. They stole a car. They're not here anymore. You guys are wasting your time." But Chuck did a great job of staying true to what he felt needed to be done. So as we were talking about, there was nothing that said that they're still here. There's nothing that said that they're not here. There was no stolen cars. There was no reports of sightings anywhere. There was nothing. So the decision was made that we would keep doing what we're doing and doing the grid searches and checking boxes and taking things out. And then it became checking camps and talking to hunters and people that had seasonal camps to check any trail cameras or anything like that. And that evolved into somebody checking their camera or wanting to go up and check their camp. That's what it was. Want to go up and check their camp. And as they're pulling into their camp, they see what they believe is people running out the back door. And as soon as that report came in, then personnel was shifted a little bit and the forensics team came in and did a whole bunch of forensic gathering and got it right down to Albany, and the lab did a tremendous job turning that around. And like you'd think it was like a CSI show or something like that. They did it so quick, but that helped to confirm some things. But yeah, it was a great opportunity to do command and control once again, to help major guests out with what needed to be done there. Did a lot of personnel movements and coordination of people coming in and all those logistics, and it was really good. And then ultimately it came down to where, after they had been discovered in the camp, everything was shifted toward Malone up in that area. And long story short, the BORTAC team ended up cornering Richard Matt, and they ended up neutralizing that threat. And then a few days later, right up along a back road in Malone's patrol area, Jay Cook was up there and noticed somebody walking alongside the road. And as he went to approach him, the guy took off running, and he recognized him as being David Sweat and was able to neutralize him. And he survived and is now serving out some time in other prisons. But just, it's one of those things that everybody heard about. It was national news. It's something, as I travel around and talk to people, that, I can mention it and they're like, "Oh yeah," or they'll bring it up and say that escape at Clinton or Denimora, however they word it. And then of course Ben Stiller did the movie and everything else.
I mean, it's a big deal. No matter how you slice the pie, It's a big deal.
And Chuck did a great job, with everything there, and
sure
wrote that little book, and that book's out there, and it's pretty good about it and everything else.
Yeah, good for him. I mean, you guys were right there, man, so you can't get any closer to it, right? Especially having the opportunity to go back and be a part of that. It's fantastic.
Yep. The juice is flowing.
Watching it from outside the circle, can't appreciate the black flies, the foliage, the canopy, until you're there, right? And
the elevation, I just heard challenges, terrain.
I just heard horror stories from guys, from mostly troops, but how the conditions were just terrible. And that was over 3 weeks, almost 4 weeks, something like that.
It was reminiscent, really, of a lot of the challenges that we had during the Phillips thing, where his was a little more residential, but there was still a lot of deciduous terrain that everybody had to go through that he could easily duck in and out of. They could walk down the road, and as soon as a car came, jump into the woods, and nobody would see him. And so a lot of challenges there, but all in all, like, all the assistance we got from across the state and anybody that came up to be a part of that, everybody, I would brief a lot of them when they got there, and they did a great job. Everybody took it serious.
Mm-hmm.
It justifies to me.
Yeah. Well,
we won the game of hide and seek once again.
I used to look forward to television with Chuck giving the briefings, and you could see all the different agencies there, and it was like good stuff. Great stuff, from my retirement chair. So changing gears just a little here, how did you manage your operational demands of being a New York State trooper, an investigator, sergeant making zone sergeant, while you still were committed to coaching high school hockey?
Yeah, so I started coaching high school hockey, helping out when I was working out of Malone, helping as an assistant the high school team there in 1990, and continued on. And to this day, I'm entering my 18th year as a head coach at Massena, continuously right through. And really, it's creating balance. It's a matter of creating balance. In the beginning, I was more of a volunteer assistant because you had being on the road with your schedule and different things like that. And being on the team, you never knew when you were going to get called out to stuff. And I was still doing some stuff at the academy off and on. with defensive tactics and instructing there and doing different instructor schools for that. But it's creating the balance and managing your schedule and sometimes making sacrifices. And it was, it all worked out pretty good. And the job was really good. And the people that I worked with were really good about me if I had to change schedules or do a shift change with the 8-hour days and stuff. It worked out pretty good. And then as time evolved and positions evolved, it kind of opened up my ability to schedule myself a little bit better to where it could accommodate the schedule during the high school season. But no, and it was really good. It was really good being a part of both. And I guess the one thing I can say about coaching youth athletics is we all have those hard days at work, and you go through your shift, and probably the last thing you want to do is go to a field or a rink or somewhere and deal with a bunch of adolescent boys. But I'll tell you one thing: it was probably the most therapeutic thing. I would have one of those bad days at work often, and by the time I finished that hour and a half skate with those boys, I felt like $1 million coming off the ice. And conversely to that, to go home to deal with it and have it continue, it was so therapeutic to be going right to the rink, jumping in, and the energy and the youth and the exuberance and everything else, and the buy-in on stuff that was. It's probably one of the best things going. And so it created a good balance for me from a mental aspect as well. And it was a lot of fun, just being able to do both. And there's a lot of things with the job, honestly, that I didn't do, that I chose not to put in for or do, because I would always ask the question to myself, would I still be able to coach hockey? Because that was my real passion outside the job. So it was sacrifice there too.
I was doing a little research on the Massena Red Raiders.
Section 10.
Section 10 of the large schools, like
so it's New York State. So you have New York State Public High School. New York State Public High School is split up into roughly 11 or 12 sections. And there's only certain sections that have hockey. Section 10 being one of them. So I think there's Section 1, 2. 1's down by Long Island. 2 is the Capital District. 3 is like Syracuse, Central New York area. 4 is your Ithaca, Binghamton. 5's Rochester. 6, Buffalo. 7 is Clinton County, Plattsburgh area. 8, I believe, is down south. 9 is, you would know these areas better than me, like Monroe, Woodbury, that area.
Down south on West Troop F.
Yeah. 10 is up by us, a very large area. And then there's a section 11, I think, might be the island.
Riverhead.
What is it? Riverhead, thank you.
Yeah. Riverhead and Suffolk area, County.
Yeah. Out that area. So 8 does not have hockey, 11 does not have hockey. So, and then from those sections, there's Division 1, Division 2. You're classified as a Division 1 school if you have population in your school of 999 and above 999 is Division 1, 999 and below Division 2. But in some sections, if you're at that Division 2 population, you can choose to play Division 1, and that's where we're at. We're only 550, 560 in those classification numbers, and we still decide and choose to play Division 1. Yeah.
So it says a lot for your youth hockey, your USA hockey. Give kudos where it belongs. For the youth programs, you're producing some really quality players at a young age to be able to compete like that. That's what's wonderful. It's a great opportunity.
High school hockey's been a lot of fun, and like I said, entering into my 18th year at Massena, and we've had some pretty good success here with this program over the years, and it's a challenge for me to try to keep that going.
We'll get to the parent part of that in a little bit. So it's no secret that USA Hockey strongly supports the women and girls ice hockey programs, as well as the Paralympic ice hockey team. How does your role as president of USA Hockey come into play for supporting these initiatives?
That was a big jump right there from all that right to USA Hockey. But no, it's great. Like our membership at USA Hockey is, so I'm entering into my 6th year as president, my end of my 2nd term. So I'll be up for re-election in June of next year. But I came in at a really tough time because it was during COVID. we were just coming out of COVID, I should say, and numbers were not great. There was a lot of challenges of how long it would take us to get back to our numbers per se. We had projected out 5 years, but in reality, through the efforts of our grassroots volunteers all across the United States, we got back to our numbers within a couple years. Really good. And since then, our growth has been year over year and continued to grow through all of these programs. I mean, we're a full service entity. We're a cradle to grave organization. We're from the 5-6-year-old that's just starting out to the old guys like us and older that still play the game. And, women hockey, disabled hockey, youth, they're all different aspects of anything with hockey is what we service as an entity, coaches and officials and all of that. But last year alone, we had over 586,000 players registered with USA Hockey. And to your point on your question, we eclipsed the milestone of 100,000 female participants and ended up the year with 103,000, just over 103,000 female participants, which is just unbelievable. The growth over the years and the participation of female athletes and 68,800 coaches and 33,000 officials and 182,000 adult players. And we're focused and working on not only obtaining, but retaining over the years. And those female participants is just such a huge part of what we do and what our programs are. And, as was evident in the successes of our women national team, just and what they've done. And as you know, the growth of the Professional Women's Hockey League and college hockey, so many different colleges have the females hockey team now and everything else. The growth is just unbelievable, which inspires that next generation. And now the year over year growth just continues of generationally going up through, but it's been astronomical.
Having lived in New York State for close to 40 years, and then moving back home to my little home state of Massachusetts, and we're in Western Mass, and we're maybe 100 miles, 90 some miles to Boston. Watched the college and the Bruins and the baby Bruins over there in Rhode Island, Providence, and the emphasis put on the women's hockey. Obviously, they have the pro team there now in Boston. And then the girls' hockey is just incredible. The Boston Bruins have reeled in a lot of people from college level and then getting out into the professions, media and things like that. It's eye-opening, the USA Hockey there. It's really wonderful.
Yeah, no, it's great. I was just in Boston we held our national goaltending symposium there, trying to continue to foster the growth and development of goaltenders all across the United States. And we did it right at the New Balance Center. Across the road is Warrior. So that's the Bruins practice facility, and a lot of stuff in there with the Boston Fleet. Of course, one of the players on the Boston Fleet is our gold medal goal scoring player, Megan Keller. It's part of the Boston Fleet. But yeah, no, that the growth is just unbelievable. And it's like that across all sports too, but our growth in the female side of things with USA Hockey is just astronomical. We have some great role models for everybody to look up to. Fantastic.
So whether you're with the MRT, restoring order at Woodstock 99 with the riots and the fires and fights and everything, at 3 a.m., or you're in a hockey locker room before a championship game, the camaraderie is incredibly unique. How did your experience in the New York State Police help you understand team dynamics when taking over as president of USA Hockey?
Well, I really think in anything, and it's kind of been something we go back to in a lot of these questions, it all comes down to the importance of teamwork and understanding that everyone is different on the team, but in the end, everybody's goal is the same. And recognizing that everybody is different, everybody has a role to play and a part to play in the ultimate mission that you're trying to accomplish. So like take what we've already talked about, like stuff with the team and state police and hockey and stuff, but you get into things with my role as president of USA Hockey. We have 12 districts in USA Hockey across the United States, broken down into 34 affiliates. And those 34 affiliates all have associations underneath them. You can't look at everybody the same. Hockey in Massachusetts that you were just talking about is different than hockey in Montana, which is different than hockey in New Mexico, which is different than hockey in California, Texas, Florida. go all across the United States. How hockey is administered. So we basically have policies and principles in place for the operation of hockey across the United States. But we recognize that we have a common goal, but how that common goal is executed depends on what each of those different affiliates have to work with. So there are some differences, but the end goal is the same. So you look at that leadership mentality and you have a team that has a mission, but everybody isn't the exact same robotic per se, but Scott Brown does one thing really good. Mike Trimboli does one thing really good. Somebody else does something good, but what they do good, the other person might not do good or be as good at. So you just continue to work off each other, strengths and weaknesses. And it's a fill and flow mentality based on strength and weaknesses with the team. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. So in policing, one of our most valuable tools is communication and de-escalation, right? How often did you use these skills when dealing with a frustrated referee, an angry hockey parent, he's smiling already, or a player who lost his cool on the bench? Has that ever happened?
Oh my God. De-escalation. Holy cow. I mean, it's a matter of perspective. It's a matter of having perspective, right? And I've said to a lot of people, and I might have mentioned this at the event that you came to in Troy, but I've been an official, I've been a player, I've been a coach. I always felt that being an official made me a better player because I understood their perspective. Being a player and an official has made me a better coach because I understand both those perspectives. I know a lot of officials that never played the game. So as a player in the game, you understand that emotion and dynamic of what happens during the course of a play. And you don't take everything like the stripes, black and white. You understand and can be a little bit gray on some stuff. But yeah, so being an official made me a better player, being a player made me a better official. Being both made me a better coach in the long run. And it is that de-escalation, but it's kind of funny because with everything, you kind of limit it to referees and parents and things like that. But in my role, you're dealing with the totality of administrators across the whole scope and breadth of the United States with hockey. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on and field a lot of calls and do a lot of things. And I joke with some of the people on my board of directors and I say, geez, I never realized that the training that I received as a hostage negotiator in the state police would come into play in my role as president of USA Hockey.
Perfect. Yeah. And you probably get a look.
Yeah. De-escalation, perspective, it's a lot of it. But it's like anything. People get frustrated. It's situational. It's what's important to them. But you got to look at things from a higher level and a higher scope of things in the bigger picture sometimes. But at the same time, you have to understand kind of where they're coming from. But at the same time, make them understand where you're coming from at the same time. And having respect for what they feel they need to talk about.
So your hometown, Massena, right? You sit right on the Canadian border, and hockey completely unites those communities, North Country, Canada. For our Canadian and international listeners, how did growing up in a border town shape your view of the global game, and how did it influence your eventual approach to USA Hockey international relationships?
It's interesting. You live right on the border, so close to the border, it doesn't feel like a border. It just feels like the next town over. Crossing over back and forth into Canada pre-9/11 was as seamless as anything. Crossed a couple bridges, went through customs, talked to the girls that worked there, and then you're on your way. And really it was just like the next town over. So you got an understanding, a feel, toward how hockey's run in Canada, so to speak, of the passion for hockey in Canada, and living on the border, watching Hockey Night in Canada and listening to the announcers over time, you knew what the passion was in Canada. And honestly, growing up, it was Canada's game. And they were at the forefront of things back then. And now through the evolution of USA Hockey, we used to go to international tournaments and participate in those tournaments. Now we go there with an expectation to win. That's really been the evolution. But with that, knowing how hockey is run in Canada, let's say, for example, it creates, in now my role, a really good relationship with with those in my same positions that are in Hockey Canada. And we have such an outstanding relationship with our friends to the north off the ice. And, as we say, we're best of friends off the ice and the biggest enemies on the ice. But with that, iron sharpens iron, right? Iron sharpens iron. So, we're constantly working against each other on things, but mutually, and from a North America standpoint, in the International Ice Hockey Federation world, with the North American standpoint, we're as close as can be on a lot of issues, and we fight for each other on issues that are important to both of us. So, yeah, being on the border town has definitely created a feel. Being a small northern New York town, it's interesting in my travels as president of USA Hockey that there's so many people out there when they ask where I'm from. I'm not going to think that they know Massena. So I'll start out with northern New York, about an hour and a half north of Lake Placid, because everybody knows where Lake Placid is from 1980, right? So everybody understands Lake Placid, an hour and a half north. And some people say, oh, I didn't think you could go north from Lake Placid. But so I tell them, yeah. And then I tell them it sits right on the Canadian border. And then sometimes, they'll be like, well, what's the name of the town? I'll tell them Massena, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I know Massena. I've been to Massena, or I played in Cornwall, or something like that. And it's an interesting, it's interesting how well our small town is known in the international community for a lot of things. I mean, years ago, I started out not coaching, but I was an instructor at Huron Hockey School over in Cornwall, right out of high school. So I got to meet a lot of guys that had some good careers, that were instructors. They played for the Cornwall Royals at the time. Yeah. In the queue. I think they were in the queue at that time. So yeah. So being right on the border, it's good. It's helped. It's helped from the global standpoint of things.
I mean, you've got some great youth hockey, high school hockey, obviously, which you're right in the thick of it. The collegiate level, men's and women's now. I mean, from Plattsburgh State all the way across to the Division I teams.
So close. That's a good reference, too, for Clarkson and St. Lawrence being right there, too. Yeah.
They got to have a few players from Europe, or, besides Canadian and American, there's got to be some Europeans. In 2026, you watched the U.S. men and women secure their double Olympic gold in Milan, along with the Paralympic team securing their fifth straight gold for the first ever sweep by any country, while you were still actively coaching high school in Massena. How did you mentally shift gears from managing global superstars like a Jack Hughes to coaching teenagers back in the North Country?
That was fun. That was so good. I mean, it was good. So, I mean, the comparison, I mean, from my role as president of USA Hockey, I didn't manage players like Jack Hughes. I mean, it was, but being a part of that group, we brought in Billy Guerin from the Minnesota Wild, a manager of the men's team, and then named Mike Sullivan, the head coach. He was with Pittsburgh at the time. And then they picked their staff from there. And we have an assistant GM group that consists of American GMs like Stan Bowman and Chris Drury and Tommy Fitzgerald and Billy Zito that are all part of it. And Chris Kelleher from the Minnesota Wild is our director of player personnel. Those are the guys that manage the players. And you got David Quinn and the rest of the coaching staff, Johnny Hines and Torts that came in and worked with the players. And, in my role, we just kind of observe, report. When the team came together, the 44 candidates were brought together in Plymouth, Michigan, September, about a year ago this time, for a lot of the orientation camp for the United States Olympic and Paralympic team. Has to bring them in and do certain training with the World Anti-Doping Agency and all those other things. So, have an opportunity to interact with all those candidates at the time. But when it comes down to, them going to the Olympics, it's the staff and everybody else that interacts with them. But I made 3 trips back and forth to Milan because of my coaching. So, getting to your question, it was preparing for my season last year. I looked at the schedule and tried to figure out when I could fit some time in to go over to Milan to see some of the games. So I constructed a break between games in my schedule. So I left, I got over there. I saw the 3 men's preliminary games and the women's quarterfinal game. And it was my first Olympics, and what an experience. I mean, I just can't put into words what it's like to be at an Olympics and be in the role that I was in and be part of those games and be with all those those that are in that group, and then be there with different Olympians as well, from, your Bonnie Bellairs, your Eric Heidens, your former Olympians that are all there, and hockey players that were there too to watch, Dave Christian and some others. But so went and saw those. Then I had to come back and finish the season. So fly back. I've got like 3-4 games left to go. But while I was over there, it was just so good that I'm like, all right, let's look at the schedule. Is there a way that I can get back? And looking at the schedule, their schedule and my schedule, the only game that really was feasible for me to get back to was the gold medal game. So if we can make it to that gold medal game, then I'm coming back. So we took care of all the logistics and accreditation and all that surrounding that. So as we all know, Quinn Hughes scores that overtime goal in the quarterfinal game against Sweden, which quarterfinal day is always the worst, but propels us into the semifinal game, which we end up winning. So the way it worked for me is I had a game on Saturday afternoon. I started at like 1:30. It was my senior day game. Get through that game, finishes. I leave the arena about 4:30, jump in the car, drive to Montreal, jump on the 8:00 flight, Montreal, fly direct over to Milan, land, about an hour drive to the hotel, change, catch the Uber over to the rink. Game starts. I mean, y'all know what happened.
Yeah, man. It was
unbelievable.
Yeah.
So exciting, being up in that management suite and
yeah,
with everybody up there and see like the Hellenbuck save was right below us, seeing him make that unbelievable save. Then Jack's goal when him and Zach and Bill were on the ice against, I think, David McCarr and McKinnon. We were like a bunch of kids that just won some youth hockey tournament, just jumping all over each other in the pandemonium. But so that game finishes, we go back to the hotel, big celebration back at what was called the Winter House. That was at the hotel. That's where all the ice sports met. So figure skating, speed skating, and hockey were at the Winter House. And anytime somebody won, we would celebrate there. So the whole team comes back, unbelievable celebration going on there. 3:30 in the morning, car picks me up, takes me to the airport, fly back to Massena.
Wow.
So like you said, I got a little bit of sleep on the flight. But came back, finished my season, flew back again for the Paralympics. And then our team wins that unprecedented 5th straight gold medal. And, I'll get to those guys in a minute here, but just that celebration with the team and everybody that was a part of that team. The players are such good athletes, such good pros. They stayed committed to it. Everybody, we talked about the teamwork earlier in this podcast, and those guys stayed in the Olympic Village. They stayed, the women's team was there too. It's the only time that our men's national team and our women's national team are together. So I wasn't there, but our executive staff took the opportunity to bring those teams together at the Winter House and have like a luncheon and a time for them to sit and just talk to each other and get to know each other better and everything else. And that builds that team within the team's camaraderie. But our guys stayed in the Olympic Village. They had a great time. And the guys are open to say, well, it goes to overtime. I know what my job is. I'm opening up the doors. I'm not a 3-on-3 guy. Those guys, they have their roles into it. And late in the games, we had guys like Vinny Trocheck and Brock Nelson that were only on the ice for faceoffs. They took every faceoff, and then the regular center with that line came out and they were so good at that. And one of the other things that I'm really proud of is the fact that our men's team and our women's team throughout the entire Olympics never had a power play goal scored on them. Our 3 collective teams, men, women's, and para, went 18-0 in Milan. Our men's and women's team never had a power play goal scored against them. They were 100% on the penalty kill. And for the men's group, that even goes back to the Four Nations tournament. They were never scored on in a penalty kill situation, Four Nations. So role players, I talked about role players. When that team was constructed by that management and coaching staff, they picked role players. You have your top 6 guys, and then you got your role players that come in. And your defense are handled and your goalies, but it's all about strengths and weaknesses that we talked about earlier, and that played such an integral part. And guys were willing to set their egos at the door and do what's in the best interest of the team from there. But, I touched on our Paralympic team there near the end, and I went back for that. Those players are unbelievable athletes. Like, that game of sled hockey is like demolition derby on ice. And they are so skilled. The way that they handle the puck on those little sticks and under the sled and being able to shoot backhand, forehand, high, low, wherever they want to put it, and turn on a dime, stop on a dime, and how they anticipate play and know the pace of a player coming into the zone that they can lay a puck out and it'll land right on his stick as he's coming in. With all the disciplines that we have and across USA Hockey with disabled hockey, that sled program has evolved, and we have such great leaders in future. I mean, Declan Farmer's the number one sled hockey player in the world, and he's just been such a phenomenal guy and bringing the game along, and such a great person, such a great human being off the ice. And Captain Josh Pauls has been part of every one of those 5 gold medal teams, and started at a very young age. And you got your Jack Wallaces and Brody Roybals and, a lot of young players on that team that are going to be the future of the program. And there's a good feeder program below them as well. So just unbelievable. But 2 stories I want to tell you about the Olympics, and interesting Olympics and Paralympic stuff. And it's all numerology. Well, actually 3 numerology things, how numbers kind of come into play sometimes. So Dave Christian was there. Dave was a member of the 1980 team, and he's an uncle, I believe, to Brock Nelson. So he was there. And the way it works with a lot of former Olympians that we have there, USA Hockey gets a certain number of tickets that they're able to give out to the game. So Dave had reached out to Pat Kelleher and asked him, if he could get a ticket for the game or whatever he needed. So Pat just randomly takes what he's got and assigns them electronically. And after the game, after we won, he said to Pat, when I got the notice for my ticket, I knew we were going to win. Pat's like, what are you talking about? And he said, my ticket assignment was row, I think it was row 6, section 6, row 10, or section 10, row 6. 10 and 6 were the numbers that his dad and uncle wore on the 1960 team that won the gold medal.
Right.
And on that ticket, his seat number was 23, the number he wore on the 1980 team. How crazy is that for that to happen? Wow. The other thing as a part of that game was Jack Hughes' overtime goal was, let me just say it. At the end, everybody remembers the tear-jerking moment when Johnny Gaudreau's children were brought out onto the ice for part of the team picture, and Johnny's dad, Guy, and his mom, and all the whole family, Meredith, everybody was brought over by NBC to be a part of that gold medal game. And Johnny's done a lot for USA Hockey internationally, and he was such a thread on that team, and still in the hearts of everybody that was part of that. But Johnny's dad, Guy, went to Norwich University.
Really?
Yeah. So when Jack Hughes' goal was scored, the time on the clock was 1819. Norwich University was founded in 1819.
You can't make that stuff up,
You can't make that stuff up.
Gee.
And then the last one I'll tell you real quick was for the Paralympics. When I went back to Paralympics, and we were watching the semifinal. When I went back, it was the semifinal game, maybe. Randomly in the whole arena, there's an area where people with the IIHF, USA Hockey is part of the International Ice Hockey Federation, where people like myself would sit in an area for seats. So randomly go down and pick a seat, and got up between periods, and I wanted to check the seat. So kind of maybe not superstitious, but a little stitious to make sure I'm back in the right seat. Check my seat number. My seat for that game was row 24, seat 21. And my shield number on the state police was 2421.
Yeah, 2421.
So made sure I stayed in that seat for the obviously the semifinal game and on into the gold medal game, which we won.
How
so
crazy
really, numbers, just how crazy stuff like that works out. Yeah,
I mean,
it's kind of neat.
Whew.
But unbelievable experience, triple gold, first time ever by any nation to sweep gold at the Olympics, men's, women's, para. But the work that all three of those teams put in and the things that they accomplished to get to that point was just incredible. And kudos to them, to all of their coaches, to all the support staff, everybody behind the scenes that did that. And I will say, and I've said this several times at our annual meetings with USA Hockey, a lot of credit needs to go to the grassroots volunteers across the United States who, either they or the people that came before them, incentivized every one of those players not only to start hockey, but and keep it fun for them and keep them coming back year over year to make them want to continue to fall in love in the sport and get to that moment where they all came together for that Olympic event. It's unbelievable.
Okay. Mike, you and your wife, Michelle, are both coaches. In a household with 2 daughters and 2 sons, sports logistics must look like an incident command center, right? How did you and Michelle co-coach your household while you were also working irregular shifts at the barracks?
Yeah, I mean, it goes right back to that word again. It's teamwork. Teamwork and balance. I mean, it's a matter of understanding what each of our schedules are, and sure, there's going to be conflicts, but you got 2 choices. You either explode because things aren't going to work out, or you find a way. So, and it's like I say at all my teams. Winners find a way. Losers find excuses. Winners find a way. And
good point.
We're fortunate to have a really good group of friends from our hockey family. We all have those hockey families, right? That the people that our kids play around the same team or whatnot. But and you get good support from other people too to come in when you can't do it. I mean, when you've got 4 children all actively involved in sports, girls were doing dance also besides sports, and you're trying to juggle everything. You're dropping. You stay with her and you stay with him and we'll be right back. And you try to watch everything. And, I tell you what, Michelle says it a lot, love the chaos and really miss it right now with the kids all gone and moved on, and youngest one's in his 2nd year at college. And when everybody goes away and goes back, you miss the chaos. And it was crazy at the time, but it was a good crazy. Yeah. But it's teamwork and balance and having a good understanding and communication on things.
Well, the one question I was going to ask is, with a lot of those things they're coming together, is how does Michelle keep you grounded when you're traveling between Massena, Colorado Springs, and Milan? I mean, if you want to just address that, I think you've already covered that. Teamwork, bouncing off each other and filling the gap, right? Fill and flow.
Yeah, and a lot of it too, it goes back to my time with the MRT, where we'd be doing something somewhere, and at the time, the pager would go off, right? Didn't have the cell phones. The pager would go off, and you'd have to find a phone and call in, and Siri had to go and then actually have a map that you had to look at the map to figure out where you were going, not some GPS thing.
A physical
map. Yeah. Folded several times. You had to try to track out your route to try to get there. But it's like she understood that I had to go, and she didn't get, crazy upset or nervous. And sometimes, we would joke and say, "Oh yeah, Mike's going to the store to get a loaf of bread. She'll be back at some point in time." But so, it's having to travel, and I have to go to different events now, both nationally and internationally, and different things that are going on across the United States where I'll go and represent USA Hockey at. And, I joke with a lot of people. I'll take a 5-hour flight somewhere between layovers and everything else to give a 15-minute speech, hang out for a little while, and then fly right back. But it's important in my role to be able to go and do those things. But, as my schedule comes out, we balance it now, and it's a little bit easier. Now it's just a matter of who's going to take care of the dogs now when all the kids are gone. But
right. Yeah.
It's teamwork and balance, and have an understanding. And sometimes with her coaching, she's got stuff that she has to go to and things like that as well. So
sure.
Each has its time.
So kind of to feed off what we're just talking about with the 4 kids growing up with hockey, the law enforcement family, what values would you say that you and Michelle passed down to your daughters and sons regarding service, teamwork, and character?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is the things I talked about with my dad. You try to foster that sense of accountability. Discipline in a way to where you're disciplined in what you do and just not willy-nilly about things. life's all about choices. Every choice that you make is either has good consequences or bad consequences. So try to make the best choices you can with the information you have, making decisions. A lot of that was established early on in the academy. As Harry Corbett would say, right, wrong, or indifferent, make a decision. Make a decision. Don't be wishy-washy about things, and be resolute in your decision making. But it goes back to the whole thing with, you might not be a superstar in what you do, but everybody's got a role to play. Find your role and play that role and do the best you can with what you've got where you are. Play where your feet are. Is doing, because everybody has their own set of skills that they start out with, and then everybody kind of progresses from there based on what their work ethic is. But play where your feet are, do the best you can with what you've got, and find success through failure. Don't just give up because you can't do it. It's that whole try, fail, succeed, fall down, get up, fall down, get up. None of us came out of the womb running a marathon. We all crawled. We all tried to stand up and we fell, but eventually we stood up. Then we walked, then we ran. It's the analogy I use a lot of times with the teams, the whole, I don't know if you know the story about WD-40. WD-40 is called WD-40 because it was water displacement test number 40. If they gave up at 39, we'd never have it. So have that positive mentality to continue to work, succeed through failure, learn from your mistakes. Winners find a way.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, I'm sure, excitement and your opportunities with USA Hockey, but there's one heck of a lot of responsibility in your shoes. And I just want to acknowledge that doesn't go unsaid. Being the president of USA Hockey has got to be a profound experience, an excellent, and like you said, it's a pinch me moment. And then going to the Olympics and we win gold all the way around, Paralympics, the women's and the men's. And it's just one of those things that, again, those of us that know you and are friends, and we're sitting back outside the little circle there, couldn't be more proud than we are. You've done a great job. So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the frozen outdoor rinks in Massena to the highest echelons of international hockey in Milan, Italy. So as we wrap up this episode, I want to bring it back to the foundation where we started this evening. Your parents instilled a level of character that guided you on patrol and your vision at USA Hockey. You and Michelle have built a legacy, coaching and raising your 2 daughters and 2 sons to understand what it means to be part of a team. So when you look back at your induction into the New York State Hockey Hall of Fame just this past July, a matter of weeks ago, what's the ultimate message that you would want to leave with the men and women who wear the uniform, as in policing, fire, etc., who wear the uniform to work, and those who lace up the skates to teach the next generation? What message do you want to send?
I think a lot of it goes back to the, I hate to keep using the word teamwork, but it's teamwork. And some of my best memories and best friendships were the people that I shared the uniform with. And whether that's the Norwich uniform, the state police uniform, the hockey sweater, or any other sport. I mean, I played football, soccer growing up, baseball, played collegiate lacrosse. So, those are sports that you play, and the friendships and sharing that field of battle, so to speak, whether it's in law enforcement, firefighting, any sort of EMS service, what you do. But, the message is cherish the time that you have, cherish the friendships that you have. And those are the things that are going to last the most. I mean, I miss the job. I miss the people more. Just the conversations that we had, and I gotta mention that, for you and Paul and Sean and John a blank, you, Paul, Sean, and Julie came out. Yeah, I mean, it was for everybody to be there. For that was just like, it's totally unexpected. And I had so many people that I've either coached with or run player development with, or been a part of my hockey life that showed up. That was such a surprise for me. But those are the moments that you cherish. I mean, those are the friendships that you cherish. And you're going to have disagreements. You're going to have hard times, but that's the support that you need, because you're going to have some tough times. And those are the people that you fall back on and establish somebody to lean on and have those conversations with who understand what you're going through. But be resolute in how you feel and what your values are, and everything will work out. I tell you that, being in this role is incredible. It's nothing I ever aspired, as you know from my speech. It's nothing I ever aspired to do, but people had faith and confidence into me and kicked me under the table or gave me the head nod to raise my hand when I didn't have the full confidence in myself. They saw things in me that more confidently than I saw in myself. And those are really big, because sometimes when people aspire for things, they're in it for the wrong reasons. And sometimes their tenure isn't as long. As I said, I'm just a kid from the 13662. I've met a lot of great people. I've had a lot of great opportunities come my way. I've never looked for the accolades or never aspired the spotlight, but sometimes it's nice to have the sun shine your way once in a while.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. Well, I had a little, I want to sign off here in a minute. I just want to read this to you. Spoken like a true leader, a phenomenal coach, and a legendary trooper. Zone Sergeant Trimboli, thank you for your 32 years. I know it was just shy of 32, you told me, but 31 plus years of service to the people of New York. Thank you for what you've done to elevate USA hockey on a global stage. And most importantly, thank you for showing us that the values of the locker room and the shield, for those who don't know, we call ours the shield, it means badge, are one of the same. It has been an honor to have you on this podcast, Mike. And again, you get last say here. Anything else you want to add to the podcast, and, any words of wisdom?
No, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. I think it's a great thing for you, what you're trying to do. And you've made a lot of friends globally and across the state. You were an excellent leader in the New York State Police. You were an excellent leader as part of our mobile response team, and somebody that I looked up to as I aspired to be on the team and while I was on the team. So, what you're trying to do beyond the shield to bring people back in, interview them into what they're doing now and relive some of their experiences and gather a great following is a really great thing that you're doing there. And appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And so basically one thing I didn't tell you was that Julie and Kathy, Paul's wife, Kathy, they were working the phones for like a month, trying to get things set up. And of course, Sean kept sticking his hand in it. So, but, okay. Well, Trim, thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick sign off here to all our listeners from around the world, whether you're returning to the fire station from a call, working the midnight shift, patrolling the busy streets in suburbia, sitting in a dispatcher chair coordinating an emergency response, or headed out to the rink with your kids. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your passion for the game. And remember to always back up your partner. Stay safe, stay elite, and we'll catch you on the next episode. This is Cappy signing off.